So hi again, welcome to 2011 Studies. I wanted to read a little section. We're going to be looking at the Day of the Lord and how when we're entering into 2018 that's going to become more and more important. This is from my book 7 Years to a Better Tomorrow, 2011 to 2018, the 2014 release, and this is pages 49 and 50, the Day of the Lord. The Day of the Lord, a time period of judgment. The Day of the Lord is a term used in the Bible that is associated with a judgment that falls on the houses of God due to their violence, quote-unquote violence, or wrongdoing. The Day of the Lord is also known as a time in which God judges the heathen, the nations who represent the people of the nations. God, at this precise time in history, which may well be the reversal in the year 2015. We were looking at the year 2015 because of the relationship with Elijah praying for rain, or praying for no rain for 3.5 years, and then praying again and there was rain. And that seemed to be referring to a 7-year period. We do know that the Great Tribulation period, which we are in, is a 7-year period by all the timelines that the Bible gives on that. And that came 7,000 years after the anniversary of the flood in 2011. So God's patterns are there and they're established. I know some people during this time period have said, no, there's no salvation available and it'll be that way right up until the end of the 7 years, as they've borrowed this period of 7 years. That's not accurate. And a lot of times when people will take something that somebody else, that God has given information to through a study, they'll take that and run with it, but they'll turn it around for no good. And the thing is, the Day of the Lord in 33 AD, the thing is, the Day of the Lord in 33 AD, when Peter stood up and proclaimed that this is what the prophet Joel was talking about, when you go back to Joel, you'll learn that the Day of the Lord's mentioned there. Now, they were in the midst of it. The Day of the Lord. There's no way you can really tell if the Day of the Lord began with the cross and then carried on until Pentecost, some time later, some days later. So we're going to be looking at this further as we study. But by all means, salvation was available. However, judgment, it is a time period of judgment also, and that's what we're pointing out in 7 Years to a Better Tomorrow. God, at this precise time in history, which may well be the reversal in the year 2015, renders recompense. Below are 3 verses that speak of this recompense. The first one, from Zephaniah, speaks of the judgment on the fallen houses of God. The second and third verses predict a time of the heathen or nations. This is when God sends recompense in such a way that only God can bring to pass such a massive event. Okay, this is Zephaniah 1:7. Hold thy peace at the presence of the Lord God, for the day of the Lord is at hand. For the Lord has prepared a sacrifice, he has bid his guests, and it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice that I will punish the princes and the king's children and all such as are clothed with strange apparel. In this same day will I punish all those that leap on the threshold, which fill their masters' houses with violence and deceit. Now, he's referring to the strange apparel. He's referring to those in the houses of God, their masters' houses with violence and deceit. So this is talking about a judgment on God's houses. This is Ezekiel 30. For the day of the Lord, this is Ezekiel 33. For the day is near, even the day of the Lord is near, a cloudy day. It shall be the time of the heathen. Obadiah 1:15. For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. For as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they have not been. It will be at this time, a time like no other in history, where God is recompensing for the evil that was done to his truths and to his people. Yet God is not glossing over the wrong done in the fallen houses of God either. God uses the word violence in relationship to what occurs within the fallen houses of God. Okay, so that's a quote from the book 7 Years to a Better Tomorrow. At this point, it's available on Amazon. I'm trying to get this up again for a free online read. I have the PDF link to it. I just have to place it on there, and I have to do that. Now, you look at these verses that talk about the day of the Lord, and as you're presenting this information, somebody can come up and quote this verse, woe unto you who desire the day of the Lord. First off, nobody here in our studies is saying, bring the day of the Lord on. It's just a fact. It's going to happen. There's no changing that. But some of these verses are talking about when the prophets approached the people in Israel, and they were saying, oh, it's not, it can't be, paraphrasing, it can't be that bad. The day of the Lord can't be that bad. So this is a Geneva Bible study. This is just a few commentaries on this. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. He speaks in this way because the wicked and the hypocrites said they were content to endure God's judgments, whereas the godly tremble in fear. Jeremiah 37, Joel 2:2, Joel 2:11, Zephaniah 1:15. And that was from the Geneva Study Bible. This is the Adam Clark commentary, very similar as they're approaching this. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. The prophet had often denounced the coming of God's day, that is the time of judgment, and the unbelievers said, let this day come that we may see it. Now the prophet tells them that this day would be to them darkness, calamity, and not light, not prosperity. So there you have it. It's like a continual mocking. Oh, the day of the Lord isn't that bad. You're talking about it, but it can't be that bad. Well, when God's Spirit starts reversing things, there's so many things we've looked at in 2011 studies, including how God can control a situation where there's every man's sword against his brother. And all these things add up to how God can do this. Because he talks about it will be as in the day of battle. Well, when you go back and look at that, that was a pretty miraculous thing that God did. And then other times when God's Spirit goes before the Israelis to create an environment Okay, we have a solar eclipse coming up in August 21st, 2017, and it's an important solar eclipse because of the numbers. August 21st, 2017, the eclipse, to the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles, October 1st, that's the Great Day, the reading of the Torah, 2018, it's 407 days. That's 11 times 37. Now, August 21st, 2017, the solar eclipse, to October 2nd, 2018 is 408 days. That's the day after the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles. That's 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 17. 17 is important during that duration of time, and it has a lot to do with salvation. So we see these numbers are important. 1335 days and the year 2018. Now, in the book 7 Years to a Better Tomorrow, released in 2014, I presented a possibility of the 1335 days found in Daniel 9. Today I would like to present another possibility which would mirror Christ's ministry of 3.5 years. Now, Mr. Camping presented a very precise detailing of 1335 days, which is found in Time Has an End and 1994, question mark. On page 530 of the book 1994, Mr. Camping shows the following. Christ sends the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, exactly 1,335 days, inclusive from his baptism at the Feast of Trumpets, as John baptized him, to Feast of Trumpets, September 28, 29 AD, to Pentecost, May 24th, 33 AD. So that was 1335, and when he detailed this, it was like, wow, that's an answer to that. But the only thing was, some of the verses sort of shift gears right up into the end of time. So we know that the day of the Lord can't have a repeating, so to speak, or a dual application to when this will be. So there it was, it answered it, or it was only a partial answer. Now, what if God does do this replication of Pentecost right after the time of Great Tribulation, or 7 years in 2018? We're looking at that, and we've looked at that in 2011 studies, that at the end of the 7 years, when we come to May of 2018, you know, it can very well possibly be either in the midst of the day of the Lord, or it can actually begin the day of the Lord. But we know this, that at Pentecost, many people from various nations were saved during that time. So salvation is not void. The reason we know that for those who are teaching no more salvation from May 21, 2011 onward, including the day of Pentecost in 2018, they've been teaching that, but they cannot answer the fact that God has to perform this short logos, or this short word that he talks about. And there's many other avenues that point to, like, praying for rain during the time of the latter rain. We are supposed to ask for rain. You know, Christ stood up on the last day, that great day of the feast, and said, if any man thirst, let him come unto me. And now that would include the final Feast of Tabernacles in 2018, that very last day of October 2nd in 2018. So this is Daniel 12:7, and we're going to read these verses, and then we're going to get into the day of the Lord and Pentecost and how that relates. Daniel 12:7, and I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be a times and a half, when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the end, or till the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And that is wisdom from Christ. That is when you pray to God for understanding and wisdom, and he gives you that. And as you study his word, it opens up. And from the time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth, and cometh to the 1,335 days. 1,335 days. 1,335 days. But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. Okay, so Daniel's instructed to go his way. It's not for him to know, but they did give some time clues. And I started thinking about this. When we talked about this in 2011 studies, when we were mentioning in the book how there was a time period of 1335 days between two very important feast celebrations, just like it was in 33 AD. And that led to the year 2015. Well, I'm looking again at this information, and I'm also seeing a connection that leads right up to Pentecost in 2018. So it's very likely, at this point I am saying this, it is very likely that the blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1335th day in 2018, which would be May 20th, that would be the day of Pentecost, that's the time period that Daniel's referring to, this period of 3.5 years. But the thing is, you'd have to back up. You'd have to back up and see where does it, from May 20th, 2018, where does it land? And it lands on a very important feast celebration, just like it did in 2015, just like it did in 33 AD. God has this preciseness to his feast celebrations from one feast to the next, and it's significant. It's very significant. So it was closed up till the time of the end, yet the cross was not the only focal point. So too, another Pentecost at the end of the 7-year Great Tribulation, where we would enter a period of time called the Day of the Lord, and also see a time of great salvation worldwide. So at the time that John baptized Jesus, 29 AD at trumpets, to Pentecost, 33 AD, it was 1,335 days. Mr. Camping's work, as I mentioned before, it did seem to answer that. Those verses of blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1335th day. However, when you're talking about like what Daniel received, and it says, go thy way, you'll stand in your inheritance at the end of the days, at the end of time, it shifts gears until the end of time right there. So we know there's a duplication going on. And not only from 29 AD to 33 AD, is the 1335 completed or fulfilled, but there's also another time period of blessed is he who waits, because in the context of Daniel it is talking about the end of time. Now, since releasing 7 years to a better tomorrow, 2011 to 2018, God's long suffering continues through Great Tribulation. I am even more convinced that the end of the 7 years, or 84 months, we are going to see a worldwide time of great salvation. So I did some reverse dates a few nights back and used May 20th, 2018 Pentecost as the start. Since Mr. Camping understood that the Feast of Trumpets was the start date of the 1335-day countdown, wouldn't it be something this is probably can be considered the time of the scattering of God's people, and sort of removing of the power of God's people. But what does God say in Daniel? It says the judgment will sit, they will take back the kingdom, they will consume and destroy unto the end the kingdom of Satan. So we have this information laid out as a pattern, and once we see this pattern, that it is incorporated into the year 2018. As we backed up to 2014 and saw this 2014 was when I released 7 Years to a Better Tomorrow. Well, now we have a time period of 1335 days also from the time period of Pentecost in trumpets in 2014 to Pentecost in 2018. So that's an important, significant thing. Remember, Christ said, this tribulation has never been since creation, and it will never be after. So we know there's a time frame that comes after this 7-year Great Tribulation. And with God's language of His short work and the fact that there's 4 months from, say, Pentecost 2018 until the last day of, a little over 4 months, until the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles, and that could very well relate to when Christ was mentioning, there's 4 months to the harvest, but then He said, the fields are white, ready to harvest right now, before the 4 months. So I think at that period of time in 2018, as we enter the time of Pentecost and the day of the Lord, that is going to be a great time of salvation during that time. And it's judgment also. You can't mistake that, because the language that talks about the violence that filled the master's houses and all that language talking about the houses of God with strange apparel. In other words, strangers have entered into the sanctuaries. There's verses that talk about that. And it's a time of God's judgment. And it's going to wake a lot of people up. It's going to be something that I don't think we've ever seen, that type of a scope on how God does this. Who knows how He does all of this. But it's going to be incredible. It's going to be a great reversal. Let's see, there's some teachings that are mentioning 2017 as a possibility. I don't see that right now. I do not see that. From the inception of the video, 2018, the year of possibility, it took a lot of study to incorporate the years of Darius, which those years came after the 70-year captivity of Judah, and we're following that pattern of the 70 years, 840 months, the 8,400 days of the 23 years, how those related. And then we have another 84-month period starting in 2011 to 2018. So 84 has shown up in all 3 accounts. And I think it's important that we, we correct ourselves when we have to be corrected. We're receiving information from God's Word as we go. He does not just unload all the information and then we have to take it all in, because that'd be impossible. I mean, a little bit here and a little bit there, and then you start realizing, okay, this is where we have to make a correction here. In 2015, I still believe that was the halfway mark, according to Elijah's prayer of he prayed again and there was rain, because it would make sense that this final 3.5 years leading up to 2018 is a time where people are hungry. And I'm actually seeing that. I'm seeing more and more people that I know who are professing Christ now as where they didn't before. So the latter rain is, the command there is to pray or ask for rain during the time of the latter rain. And I think God has done that. I think we're right in the midst of it. So I don't think the Feast of Tabernacles in 2017 has anything to do with anything except it's just continue on every year. There's a certain day where the Feast of Tabernacles lands. But it's 2018 where that all-important Feast of Tabernacles will be approximately 4 months out from May 20th, 2018, which is the end of the 7 years and the time of Pentecost. And the day of the Lord, either we're in the midst of it or it'll start then. This is the 4 months of harvest Jesus mentioned. This is John 4:33. Therefore said the disciples one to another, Hath any man brought him aught to eat, anything to eat? Jesus said unto them, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. Say ye not, There are yet 4 months, and then cometh the harvest? Behold, I say unto you, Lift up your eyes, and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. And he that reapeth receiveth wages, and gathereth fruit unto life eternal, that both he that soweth and he that reapeth may rejoice together. And herein is the saying true, one soweth and another reaps. I sent you to reap that whereon ye bestowed no labor, other men labored, and ye are entered into their labors. I believe this is going to happen in 2018. I think there's been people, proclaiming that Christ is coming, but it'll be honed into to the point where that day will not overtake us as a thief, as 2 Thessalonians says. And it may be that other people pick up the baton and run with it and proclaim this and take care of the business at hand in the year 2018. We are only a very, very small, I believe, fraction of the believers who are proclaiming the Word of God at this point. But the thing is, this information is important to get out there so that other believers will know that yes, we're approaching the day of the Lord in the year 2018. According to God's patterns, according to His timelines that historically have already come to pass, that historically have happened, and we're reliving them. Now, we can't say that God is done saving when His Word says that He will cut it short in righteousness and perform a short word, logos, or work. Romans 9:25, and He saith also in Osee, I will call them my people which were not my people, and her beloved which was not beloved. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, they shall be called the children of the living God. That was Romans 9:25 and 9:26. This is Romans 9:27. Isaiah also cried concerning Israel, though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved. For he will, and that remnant word means remainder, the remainder shall be saved. For he will finish the work and cut it short in righteousness, because a short work will the Lord make upon the earth. As Isaiah said before, except the Lord of the Sabbath had left us a seed, we had been as Sodom and had been made like unto Gomorrah. So there God's painting that picture again of his history like He did with the flood. 7,000 years in 2011 was the anniversary of the flood. One day is 1,000 years. But we learned something when we went back to study that. We learned that God is long-suffering for the sake of salvation. That's the key there. And there just seems to be a lot of pride with people proclaiming no more salvation. I don't get it, except that Satan wages war against the believers, and there's some verses that are quite scary that they would abandon God's covenant and not proclaim it any longer. And since 2011, we have proclaimed God's salvation will continue to the very last day, and even going a step further and saying that this salvation will be worldwide the closer we get into God's short work and His logos that will go forth into all the world, and many will become saved. Now, what we're studying is difficult. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I'm presenting this now, but if somebody's just tuned into this for the first time, it might be a little bit confusing. Anybody feel free to email me, because I do like personal studies with people, and if you have questions, 2011studies@gmail.com. You might be wondering, what are you talking about? You might be wondering, 2018, why then? But the thing is, in the book of Daniel, it says, them of understanding shall fall. So we have that information that there was going to be people who understand this at the end of time, just like Daniel did. Daniel prayed. He had to wait 21 days before he got his answer. He wanted an answer about the things of the end. And that 21 days is very significant because during the 8400 days, that's 4 times 2100. During the 84 months of the 7 years, which we're living right now, again, the number 21 shows up in 84 months. 4 times 21. So, we waited for information as well as Daniel. We waited slowly, and it came. And we keep praying about this because, we don't want to be wrong about something. But the more and more this time goes on, I'm not seeing anything else. I'm just not, with the patterns of history and the lessons of Cyrus, how they went to rebuild the temple, Ezra, Nehemiah, all of that information points to 6 years, for the years of Darius, for 6 years, and that fits within the 7 years. And we covered all that in the book 7 Years to a Better Tomorrow, how it fits within, and it lands in the year 2018. The month Adar in 2018 is a very significant month because that word Adar means to magnify, to make great. And the book of Esther, I believe, relates to some of that. So we have a lot of things going on and coming into the year 2018. It's a matter of we have to trust God on certain things. We can't say absolutely certain this is the way it is, because as we studied, we laid out possibilities. I don't think there's any doubt. Anybody can look around today and say, yeah, this is a world of great tribulation, great pressure. We're in a time that is very distinct, and the war of the kingdoms is going on. Kingdom against kingdom, Matthew 24, that's the kingdom of Satan against the kingdom of Christ. You see that war, it's going on. It is going on. We are in the final months of history. There's no doubt about it. The final days of history now. I believe it's until we reach, Pentecost, May 20th, 2018, I think it's 10 months at this point. It might be 11 months, and I can't remember. I just looked it up the other night, but we're getting close. Anyway, the biblical patterns must be our guide because God is not random. I've said that so many times in 2011 studies. It's not a matter of saying, oh, this date looks good or this date looks good. We have to follow the patterns that God has established. And just like the 1335, from the trumpets, when John baptized Christ, unto Pentecost in 33 AD, that was precisely 1335 days. God is not random. He follows these patterns. And now we have another pattern from 2014 that ends May 20th in 2018, the 1335 days. That could be highly significant and a duplicate of 29 AD to 33 AD. And we shall see if God, that's the time of his short work. The short work would be from Pentecost 2018, that's May 20th, 2018, until the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles, about 4 months after that, a little bit over, October 2nd, 2018. So, what else didn't I cover? Oh, man. I looked at this number 137 and I was just astounded. I can't get into it now because I only have so much time on this battery. But I will cover this as the studies continue. Let's see, Pentecost 33 AD to Pentecost in 2018, it's 725,004 days. That's 1984 years, 11 months, and 26 days, excluding the end date. And that 1984 years is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 31. And we see how that 31 relates to the time of cleansing. But this 137, I don't even know what I was doing here. Oh, September 24, 2014, and that would have been, let's see, start date to end date. Oh, okay. The Feast of Trumpets in 29D2, the Feast of Trumpets in 2014, September 28th, 29 AD, 2, but not including Wednesday, September 24th, 2014. I see what I was doing, going from one Feast of Trumpets in 29 AD to the important start date of the 1335, September 24th, 2014. It's 7:25 and 4 days. And that shows 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 7 times 7 times 137. I'll get into that 137 at another time. Because when I started looking at that, I was like, that's an incredible number. Not only as far as, biblical verses, but how God has incorporated 137 in creation itself. And that's so significant. That'd be a really good next study. So, I just wanted to review really quickly. Now, the 7,000 year anniversary of the flood in 2011 was a significant year. That announcement of Christ coming went worldwide. We learn from 2 Peter 3 that God is merciful. He's long-suffering for the sake of salvation. He's not willing that any would perish as they did with the flood. He gave an extension period, this rebuilding process, which followed the patterns of the years of Cyrus. And Cyrus and Darius, I should have said Darius, the years of Darius, but they were co-regent rulers. The years of Darius are so significant because it gets into the fact that God will beautify, as He beautified the temple back then. In other verses it talks about He beautifies the meek with salvation. So we saw the completion of the temple in Darius's time relating to, or like a foreshadow, a physical foreshadow of what would happen at the end of time as God beautifies the meek with salvation. So everything we've looked at in 2011 studies is significant for the year 2018. And I'm going to put a link to the other study, which I released back in 2011/2012. I can't really remember when it was released. It was 2018, A Year of Possibility. When I released that, did not have all the information that God has released since then by studying His Word. Just did not have it all. But it seemed very likely. And then the more and more study went on, and we got to the year 2014, I released 7 Years to a Better Tomorrow because it was a possibility that 2015 was significant. So I had to release it quickly. All that information in 7 Years to a Better Tomorrow is still valid, with the one exception that the 1335 days, it may have well related to 2015. God can have duplications of time where He saves a great number of people. But now it looks as though we're approaching 2018, and May 20th, the end of the 7 years, is the important thing to be focusing on now, because that is when God is going to save a great multitude worldwide. And it's also a time of judgment, because within the houses of God, and the heathen, those who rejected Christ, because the verses, there's so many verses that are incorporated into the phrase, the day of the Lord. So we have to look at everything. We're looking at everything. And for those who are mocking, saying, well, it can't be that bad, bring on the day of the Lord. And God retaliates and says, woe unto you who desire the day of the Lord. This is not something to be desired. We're going to go through it. We have to go through it. And it's going to be for a longer period of time than one day. But we're going to also see God's mercy and salvation. But for those mockers, there's a verse that talks, be not mockers lest your bands be made strong. There's some warnings there that you better not be mocking God's word at this point. Now, I'm not talking physically to anybody here, but I'm talking to anybody who is mocking. You know, that's a dangerous game to be playing at this point, because we are entering the day of the Lord soon. That's it for now. So we'll look at some more verses as time goes on, God willing. This 2017 has been kind of a rough start, you know, and into the year, but God will allow for this word to go out, I believe, and I think it's time to get back into these studies and start producing them. So thank you for watching. You know, share this information with others. Do it in your own way if you have to. Just send an email. It's possible we're entering the day of the Lord in 2018, and you know, share some of these studies with people, because I think it has to be proclaimed. God's short work will be done. It will be done, and He'll cut it short in righteousness. There'll be a flood of righteousness coming in, and that will be in the year 2018. God bless you. My name is Marty Catuzzo. The email, if you have any questions, 2011studies@gmail.com. Thank you.